Jacob, a humble farmer, was walking back home from the market when he heard soft whimpering near an abandoned shed. Curiosity led him closer, and what he saw broke his heart. A tiny, starving puppy lay curled up in the dirt, its ribs showing through its thin fur. Its eyes, filled with fear and desperation, met his. Jacob hesitated. He already had a struggling farm and a family to feed. But something in the puppy's gaze made it impossible to walk away. Sighing, he bent down and scooped the trembling creature into his arms, unknowingly changing their destinies forever. The puppy shivered in Jacob's arms as he hurried back to his farmhouse. His wife, Emily, gasped when she saw the frail animal. "Jacob, we can barely feed ourselves," she whispered, concern in her voice. Their two children, Lily and Sam, rushed to their father's side, their eyes lighting up at the sight of the puppy. "Can we keep him, Papa?" Lily asked. Jacob nodded, unable to say no. That night, they fed the puppy warm milk and wrapped him in a blanket. For the first time in weeks, the little creature slept soundly, feeling safe at last. Over the next few days, the puppy regained strength. He was playful, but still weak, and the family worked together to care for him. "What should we name him?" Sam asked one evening as they sat on the porch. "Hope," Lily said softly, "because he gave us hope when we needed it the most." The name stuck. Hope became a part of their family, wagging his tail with joy at every meal and snuggling beside the children at night. Little did they know, this small act of kindness would one day return in ways they could never imagine. Hope quickly became attached to the family, especially Jacob. Wherever Jacob went, the little pup followed. Whether it was feeding the chickens, plowing the fields, or fetching water from the well, Hope was always by his side. The puppy, once weak and starving, now ran with boundless energy, his golden fur shining in the sunlight. One evening, Jacob noticed Hope growling at the barn's entrance. "What is it, boy?" he asked. Hope's ears were perked up, and his body was tense. Though Jacob saw nothing, he had a strange feeling that the pup sensed something he didn't. As winter approached, the farm struggled. The crops had not yielded as much as expected, and food supplies were running low. The family rationed their meals carefully, ensuring everyone, including Hope, got just enough to eat. Despite the harsh conditions, Hope remained cheerful, wagging his tail and licking the children's faces whenever they felt down. One night, as the snowstorm raged outside, Hope curled up beside Lily and Sam, keeping them warm. His presence was comforting, reminding them that no matter how hard things got, they had each other. Jacob was initially hesitant about keeping Hope, but the pup's unwavering loyalty changed his mind. He noticed how Hope instinctively knew when someone was sad or scared. Whenever Emily worried about the farm, Hope would nuzzle her hand, and when Jacob came home exhausted, the puppy greeted him with excited barks. One morning, as Jacob struggled with a broken plow, Hope grabbed a piece of wood and tugged it playfully. "You want to help, boy?" Jacob chuckled. It was a small moment, but it showed Jacob that Hope wasn't just a pet. He was family. One night, as the family sat by the fireplace, Hope suddenly perked up. His ears twitched, and he let out a low growl. Jacob frowned. "What is it, boy?" Hope ran to the door and barked loudly. Jacob grabbed his lantern and stepped outside, scanning the darkness. The wind howled, and the shadows danced eerily, but nothing seemed out of place. Still, the unease in Jacob's chest grew. He patted Hope's head. "Good boy, keep watch." Unbeknownst to them, danger was closer than they thought. That night, Jacob woke up to Hope's frantic barking. He grabbed his shotgun and rushed outside. In the dim moonlight, he spotted movement near the barn. A shadowy figure lurked by the fence, trying to pry open the gate. Hope stood between the intruder and the house, his teeth bared, growling fiercely. "Who's there?" Jacob shouted. The figure froze before dashing into the woods. Jacob's heart pounded as he realized that Hope had just protected their livestock from being stolen. He knelt down and hugged the pup. "You're more than just a dog, Hope. You're our guardian." The next morning, Jacob found footprints in the snow leading from the woods to the barn. They weren't his, and they weren't Emily's or the children's. Someone was here, he muttered, tracing the marks with his fingers. Hope sniffed the tracks and barked, his tail stiff. "You know this scent, don't you?" Jacob murmured. His grip tightened around his pitchfork. If someone had been lurking around their farm, it wouldn't be long before they returned. A few days later, Jacob went to town to buy supplies. While at the general store, he overheard a conversation between two men. "Heard someone's been sneaking around farms lately," one said. "Looking for easy targets." Jacob's stomach twisted. He glanced at Hope, who sat by his feet, alert as ever. "We're not an easy target," Jacob muttered under his breath, but he knew they had to be extra careful now. Determined to prepare for any danger, Jacob started training Hope. He taught him to recognize commands, guard the house, and even bark on cue if someone suspicious came near. Hope was a fast learner. Every night he patrolled the perimeter of the farm, ears perked for the slightest sound. Jacob felt safer knowing that his loyal companion was always watching over them. It was a quiet evening when the nightmare unfolded. Jacob and his family had just finished dinner when Hope suddenly started barking furiously. He ran to the door, his body tense. Then, bang! The sound of breaking glass echoed through the house. Jacob's heart leaped into his throat. "Emily, get the kids!" he yelled. Hope bolted outside, growling like never before. The danger they had feared had finally arrived. Jacob grabbed his shotgun and ran after Hope. Outside, two masked men stood near the barn, holding weapons. "Get away from my farm!" Jacob shouted. Hope charged at one of the men, biting his leg. The man yelped, kicking at the dog, but Hope didn't back down. The other intruder raised his gun, but before he could fire, Jacob shot a warning blast into the air. "Leave now, or you won't get a second chance," he growled. The men hesitated before fleeing into the darkness, cursing under their breath. Hope limped back to Jacob, panting but victorious. The attack left the family shaken, but they were safe, thanks to Hope. Jacob tended to the pup's wounds, his hands shaking. "You saved us, boy," he whispered. Emily hugged Hope tightly. "He's not just a pet, Jacob. He's our hero." The children clung to Hope, tears in their eyes. That night, as the family huddled together, they knew their lives had changed forever. News of Hope's bravery spread through the small town. When Jacob went to the general store the next day, people patted his back and praised the dog. "That pup of yours is something special," the storekeeper said, handing Jacob an extra bag of feed for free. Even the sheriff took notice. "If that dog wasn't there, things could have gone south real fast," he said. Jacob nodded, realizing just how much Hope had changed their lives. Sheriff Collins visited the farm later that evening. "Those men weren't just passing thieves," he said grimly. "They've been hitting farms across the county, but your dog scared them off good." Jacob felt a chill run down his spine. "Will they come back?" he asked. The sheriff hesitated. "I don't know, but I wouldn't let my guard down." Hope sat by Jacob's feet, ears twitching, as if he understood every word. Taking the sheriff's words seriously, Jacob fortified the farm. He reinforced the doors, secured the barn, and set up traps near the perimeter. Hope watched attentively, always by Jacob's side. Emily taught the children what to do in case of danger. "If Hope barks like last time, we hide," Lily whispered to Sam. Hope wagged his tail, nudging the little girl's hand, as if to assure her he'd always protect them. One afternoon, while checking the fence, Hope suddenly bolted toward the woods, barking wildly. Jacob ran after him, heart pounding. Deep in the forest, Hope stopped and growled at something partially buried in the snow. Jacob knelt and brushed the dirt away. Footprints, fresh ones. Someone had been watching the farm again. Jacob swallowed hard. "They're still out there," he murmured, gripping Hope's collar tightly. Jacob barely slept after that. Every night, he sat by the window, his shotgun within reach. Hope refused to stay inside, choosing instead to guard the front porch, ears perked for the slightest sound. Emily worried. "You can't go on like this, Jacob." He sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. I just don't want to lose what we've built. Hope whined softly, nudging Jacob's leg. They weren't alone in this fight. Days later, a note was found nailed to their barn door. You should have stayed quiet. We'll be back. Jacob's hands clenched into fists. The children weren't allowed outside alone after that. Hope, sensing the unease in the air, became even more protective. The pup, once a starving stray, now carried the weight of his family's safety on his shoulders. Jacob turned to his old friend, Daniel, for help. Daniel was a retired soldier, tough as nails and sharp as a blade. You got a good dog, Jacob, Daniel said, after meeting Hope. But even the best dogs need backup. Together, they set up a security system, tripwires, hidden alarms, and a rifle always within reach. Hope followed their every move, his keen eyes absorbing it all. Weeks passed without incident. Slowly, life returned to normal. The children laughed again. Emily smiled more, and Jacob allowed himself to breathe. But Hope never let his guard down. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Hope stood at the porch, staring into the darkness, growling softly. Something was coming. A loud crash shattered the peaceful night. Jacob shot up from bed, grabbing his rifle. Hope was already at the door, barking like mad. Stay inside, Jacob shouted to Emily and the kids. As he stepped outside, he saw shadows moving near the barn. 3 men, armed and masked. They had returned. Jacob fired a warning shot, but the intruders didn't run this time. They charged. Hope launched himself at the nearest man, sinking his teeth into his arm. The man screamed, trying to shake him off. Jacob barely had time to react before another attacker lunged at him. A fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling to the ground. Hope turned, teeth bared, ready to defend his master. The fight was brutal. Hope managed to bring one man down, but another kicked him hard, sending him yelping to the ground. Jacob, fueled by rage, tackled the last attacker. Fists flew, blood spilled, but Jacob refused to give in. He had too much to lose. Hope, despite his injury, struggled back to his feet, ready to keep fighting. A gunshot rang out. Jacob's heart nearly stopped. For a terrifying moment, he thought he'd been hit. But then he saw one of the attackers clutching his shoulder. Daniel stood behind him, rifle smoking. I told you the dog needed backup, Daniel said. The remaining men scrambled to escape. Hope limped to Jacob's side, his tail wagging weakly. The battle was over, for now. The sheriff arrived soon after, arresting the injured intruder. You won't be seeing them again, he assured Jacob. But the damage was done, the barn was trashed, and Hope was injured. As Jacob carried his loyal dog inside, Emily and the kids rushed to his side. You're going to be okay, boy, Jacob whispered. But deep down, fear gnawed at him. Hope's wounds were serious. The vet warned that he might not walk properly again. Jacob refused to believe it. He's a fighter, he insisted. Day after day, Hope worked to regain his strength. The children helped, encouraging him with treats and gentle pats. Slowly, painfully, he got better. He had saved his family. Now they would save him. By spring, Hope was back on his feet, albeit slower than before. The farm felt safer, stronger. Jacob often found himself watching Hope with a mix of pride and gratitude. We wouldn't be here without you, boy, he murmured one evening. Hope thumped his tail, his eyes shining with love. As the farm settled back into a routine, Jacob noticed that Hope was still not as strong as he once was. His steps were slower, and he tired easily. The children remained by his side, encouraging him to play and keeping him company. Emily often found Jacob sitting on the porch at night, stroking Hope's fur, lost in thought. He's family, Jacob murmured. We owe him everything. One morning, a man arrived at the farm. He wore a clean suit, looking out of place in the rural setting. I heard about the dog, he said, introducing himself as a journalist from a well-known newspaper. He wanted to write about Hope, the stray who had saved his family. Jacob hesitated, but eventually agreed. Hope's story deserved to be told. The article spread across the country, and soon, letters and donations flooded in. People wanted to support Hope's recovery. Some even offered to buy him, but Jacob laughed at the idea. He's not for sale, he's where he belongs. A company sent a year's supply of dog food, and the town sheriff stopped by just to shake Jacob's hand. "That dog's a legend now," he said. But not all attention was welcome. One evening, Jacob spotted a familiar figure near the woods, the last intruder who had escaped. A cold shiver ran down his spine. They weren't done with him yet. Jacob tightened his grip on his rifle. Hope, sensing the tension, let out a low growl. That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the tree line. Hope remained on high alert, ears twitching at every sound. Emily worried. "We can't live in fear forever, Jacob." He nodded but didn't answer. Deep down, he knew this wasn't over. The next day, the wind howled through the valley, carrying the scent of rain. The sky darkened, and the farm animals grew restless. It wasn't just the weather. Something else was coming. Hope sat by the fence, staring into the distance, his body tense. Jacob loaded his shotgun and prepared for whatever lay ahead. The attack came in the dead of night. This time, they weren't just thieves. They were out for revenge. Jacob heard the first gunshot and ducked for cover. Hope barked furiously, his body a blur, as he charged toward the danger. The family hid in the cellar as Jacob and Daniel stood their ground. In the chaos, Hope took down one of the intruders, but suffered a deep wound in the process. Despite the pain, he kept fighting, refusing to let them near his family. Jacob fired shot after shot, protecting his home. When the dust settled, the remaining attackers fled into the night. But when Jacob turned to Hope, his heart sank. His loyal friend lay motionless on the ground. Jacob dropped to his knees, cradling Hope's battered body. "Stay with me, boy," he whispered, his voice breaking. Emily and the children rushed outside, their faces stricken with fear. Tears streamed down Lily's cheeks as she held Hope's paw. "Please don't go," she begged. Hope lifted his head weakly, his eyes filled with love. He gave Jacob's hand one final lick before letting out a deep sigh. Then he closed his eyes. The world seemed to stop. Jacob held on to him, feeling his heart break into a million pieces. The dog who had saved them all was gone. News of Hope's sacrifice spread quickly. The town gathered to honor him, placing flowers at the farm gate. The sheriff spoke about bravery, and Daniel shared stories of Hope's heroism. Even strangers who had read the article sent their condolences. Hope had touched more lives than Jacob could have ever imagined. Jacob buried Hope beneath the oak tree on the hill, the spot where he had first brought him home. A wooden plaque was placed at the site. "Here lies Hope, the bravest soul to ever walk this land." The family visited every day, leaving fresh flowers and speaking to him as if he could still hear them. The farm felt different without Hope. The nights were too quiet, and the porch felt empty. The children struggled with the loss, especially Lily, who refused to play outside anymore. Jacob himself found it hard to move on. Every time he saw the food bowl, his chest ached. A month after Hope's passing, a letter arrived from a rescue shelter. They had heard about Hope's story and wanted to honor him by naming their new animal rescue center after him. The Hope Shelter. Jacob wiped his eyes as he read the letter. Even in death, Hope was still saving lives. Determined to honor Hope's legacy, Jacob and his family visited the shelter. There, they met dozens of abandoned animals, each one looking for a home. Lily knelt beside a small, trembling puppy. "He looks like Hope," she whispered. Jacob felt something stir inside him. Perhaps their journey wasn't over yet. After much thought, the family adopted the puppy, naming him Chance. Though he could never replace Hope, he brought light back into their lives. Chance was playful and energetic, and slowly, the laughter returned to the farm. Hope had given them a gift, a second chance at love. The farm continued to flourish, and Chance grew into a strong, loyal dog. Though Hope was gone, his spirit remained in every sunrise, in the laughter of the children, and in the wagging tail of Chance. Jacob often stood by the oak tree, whispering his gratitude. "You were never just a dog, Hope. You were family." and you will always be remembered.